20 years ago, a reality TV series about a struggling promotion aired on Spike TV that, for better or worse, would go on to change the landscape of sports and pop culture. This is a retrospective of that series, its key players, and its lasting legacy. This is TUFtwenty.
TUFtwenty is brought to you by The Contrarians, a movie podcast where we are right and you're wrong. Be sure to subscribe to The Contrarians on your favorite podcatcher for access to this entire series, as well as Julio and Alex's most recent film follies. Our main website, wearethecontrarians.com, houses all of our past episodes as well.
You can find The Contrarians across social media under the handle @ContrarianPrime.
It's not just us, though. As for this 14-part journey of nostalgia and shame, we've got a championship corner.
I'm Joe Holbert, and for years I've discussed fake fighting on the internet. Now, however, I'm trying my hand at the real thing. Usually, you can find me at the Late Night Grim, but for this particular adventure, I'll be sitting under the Team Couture learning tree, providing insight to my fellow men of honor.
It's niche micro-celebrity Steve. You may know me from Twitter, the Songs with Friends podcast, or various scuffles in the world of professional wrestling. By the end of this journey, you are no doubt going to feel this, because this is the ultimate.
Now that the cage door is locked, let's get down to business.
Time to talk asparagus.
Julio, Josh Koscheck has taken a bit of a back seat because we have a new villain in town, and his name is Sam Hoger. We're going to dive into that in this episode, including some personal anecdotes about old sausage tits there. Are you happy we have a new villain? Are you happy, or are you missing the Koss days where he was public enemy number one?
Koscheck has been like my boy.
Yeah, but like he was the for the purposes of like the presentation of the show, he was like the heel they were presenting.
Because he was scheming. He was like a little troll. No, that was amusing. There is nothing amusing about Sam. So yes, I do miss the times where there was a very brief period of time. What was it? 2 episodes where it was just fun because Levin was gone, and it seemed like. See, now I look at it with nostalgia. At the time, we were like, well, what's going to happen with the show now? And now I know what's going to happen with the show. And it's like, Sam's going to start stealing shit. And Levin's going to come back as, I guess, an allegedly neutered version of himself. I don't know how I feel about this, Alex. But hopefully this discussion will help me sort out my feelings.
Fair enough. Much to unpack. Joe, this is a big one. We finally get to see Forrest Griffin fight in this episode.
We do indeed. He has been kind of gradually becoming a bit of a sentimental favourite, right, with his quippings and colourful insight throughout the programme. He's done it with very limited time, too, I feel like. So we get him, see him fight, and seeing Forrest fight is an adventure all in itself, isn't it? So this is an exciting affair for sure. And
Steve, we had a bit of a discussion about the televisions of the time. I don't think it was the last episode, but go back in the archives. We talked about the advent of the high definition projection screen TVs. Here, is there anything more 2005 reality television than a big TV that comes up out of the ground in the mansion that people are staying in?
That TV and the accoutrements surrounding the television was very reminiscent of something you would see in Austin Powers. As they oohed and awed over this big screen television, which was no bigger than 37 inches.
And they had the VCR, and it looked like a DVD player set up to it. The funniest joke was Lieben was like, I've definitely spilt beer down there before, because that's obviously what would happen in this situation. It was March 14th of 2005. It was episode 9 of the first season of The Ultimate Fighter, Low Blow, as it's called here.
I'm sure part of the discussion is going to be like, what does that refer to? What is the low blow in this episode?
If Fatherless Bastard isn't considered the low blow, I think this one kind of gets off easy. March 14th, 2005, as I mentioned, we were firmly on the road to WrestleMania. Monday Night Raw, the World Wrestling Federation, presented from the Gwinnett Center in Atlanta, Georgia. What happened on the show, boys? We had Kane defeating Christian and Tyson Tomko in a handicap match at 320. Shelton Benjamin defeated Edge to retain the WWE Intercontinental Championship in 10 minutes, which I'm sure is a match that people got on the forums immediately and started talking
Some
about.
collision action on Monday Night Raw here.
Man, complete sidebar. It's starting to feel like, the later seasons of The Ultimate Fighter. I watched a little bit of Collision last night, and like the vibes are gone, man.
Yeah. It's a distant memory, those glory days where Punk, led us to championships and triumphs. That 4-year run he had as head booker. Long gone now, brother.
Julio, just so you're in on the joke here. The Shelton Benjamin versus Edge match is quite realistically a possibility to happen in AEW,
Yes.
like, in the months to
It may
come.
have happened by the time people are hearing this.
It's true. It was a Rockers reunion. I remember watching this Raw. Marty Jannetty returned to team with Shawn Michaels as they defeated La Resistance. Julio, La Resistance was a tag team put together in the wake of the French not having our backs in invading the Middle East.
Oh, God.
So Vince is like, let's make a team of bad guys that are French. And
was there another team called the Freedom Fries?
yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's probably what Vince was calling them backstage. Actually, I don't know if Vince McMahon has ever had a French fry in his life. Who knows? Steve, what was Marty came back for this, and was this during this stretch the Kurt Angle match, the singles match he had?
It was the same week. The Kurt match would have been filmed on Tuesday. So they brought him in on Monday to get this Rockers one off first. And then he had the singles match on that week's SmackDown.
They came out to the Rockers theme, which is a fucking banger. And the Kurt match is good, too. This was discussed in the Dark Side of the Ring, right? Doesn't he say he was supposed to get like a $10 million contract or some shit?
He got signed. He definitely did get signed, but he was on probation, I think. He couldn't leave the state. Like, he got a one-time exception for those matches, and it turned into something they couldn't work out.
That gets you running the bloodline these days, brother.
Yeah.
Julio, Marty Jannetty is we could do a 14-part series on that guy alone. He's a bit of a character. Was a good wrestler, but insane. May have murdered a guy, he claims, and there was like a police investigation surrounding it. And, speaking of murderers, Triple H defeated Chris Benoit in a non-title Pick Your Poison match.
Oh, no.
Couldn't have planned that transition better.
I know what poison Benny picked in the end. 1648. I guess Triple H has to beat someone on the way into Batista. And then our main event, Batista defeating, because there's no way to get this guy hotter for his WrestleMania main event. Batista defeated Gene Snitsky by disqualification in 447, which Snitsky wasn't even on the 21 card, was he?
I doubt
I
it.
don't think so.
Because he's been really like omnipresent in all these results we read. And anyway, midpoint of March, Julio, what was standing atop the box offices? What was packing in crowds?
So this is spring break, or must have been spring break. So we get some big hits, mostly a kids movie. But before we get to that, I'll have you know the one movie that came out, well, two movies came out that didn't make it to the top 5. One is a personal favorite of mine, The Upside of Anger. Kevin Costner not playing a cowboy. He has a line where he screams, he's had enough, and he screams at oh God, who is the wife in Face Off?
Joan Allen.
Joan Allen. So Joan Allen thinks that her husband has left her, and she has 3 daughters: Eva Rachel Wood, Kerry Russell, and someone else, maybe Julia Stiles. And anyway, she starts dating the neighbor, who's Kevin Costner, and she's being very demanding, and he's just putting up with it, And then they have an argument, and he goes, "I'm sick and tired of being your bitch." I was like, oh my God, Kevin Costner. Anyway, I think that line might have kept it from the top 5. Also, The Passion of the Christ recut was re-released.
Two Christ, Too Furious.
Yes. 18 more minutes of flogging. I don't know, I've never seen it, but it didn't crack the top 5. No, I've seen the original cut.
Oh, okay. I thought that's what you were mentioning. I was like, it has not aged well.
I mean, it is it's a rough sit even when it first came out. But anyway, now we get into the top 5. Number 5, Hitch. Will Smith continued falling down, made only 11 million this week. Number 4, another movie falling down, Be Cool, went from number 2 to number 4, 13 million. Number 3 is a new movie, Hostage. I don't know that one, 13 million. It sounds like one of those Bruce Willis direct to streaming movies, but there was no streaming as a powerhouse at the time, so I guess it went to theater. Is it Bruce Willis?
Yeah, it's Bruce Willis, Ben
Oh
Foster.
my
I thought you were. Yeah, the poster looks straight to video too. Kevin Pollak's in it, so
There you go. No, I didn't know it was Bruce Willis. I just guessed because it's just a generic action name. Number 2, Vin Diesel falls from 1 to 2. The Pacifier made 23 million. And then number 1, debuting an animated adventure for kids, Robots, featuring the voices of Ewan McGregor and Robin Williams. 45 million. Any of you watch Robots back when it came out? Were you already too old for that?
Was that DreamWorks? It wasn't Disney, right?
I don't think it's Disney, no. It's Robin Williams. It's like Robin Williams doing an animated movie. Everybody goes to see it because they want the next Aladdin. It was not.
I was about to say, I don't think it reached that. No, I've never seen Robots. I remember the promotion for it, but I was too busy watching The Ultimate Fighter, you know?
It has a longer lasting legacy.
Too busy studying tape. Steve, the king is dead. Long live the king. Our boy dropped off. What was the music charts looking like at this point in time?
All right. First off, I've not seen Robots, but the only knowledge I have it is that Raven referenced it in one of his Secrets of the Ring.
Of course.
A quote something to the effect of, if everyone's special, then nobody is. So anyway, top 5 movies of that week. Number 5, 50 Cent with Disco Inferno. Number 4, The Game, featuring 50 Cent with How We Do. Number 3, our fallen hero, Mario with Let Me Love You. Number 2, continuing their run of runner-up status, is Green Day with Boulevard of Broken Dreams. And number 1 is The New King with 3 in the top 5 songs. 50 Cent featuring Olivia with Candy Shop once again.
You know, he's such an embedded part of pop culture at this point that, like, we take 50 for granted, you know? I forgot. This has really reminded me how huge he was at that point in time. Like, you couldn't go anywhere, and you couldn't escape his music. And then he went on to acting.
Yeah, Curtis Jackson. Is that his name?
Yes.
Okay.
Get Rich or Die Trying, and then, of course, was he the bad guy in Righteous Kill? I know he gets a very undignified death in that movie. That's the main thing I remember.
Yeah, he was not the bad guy is Pacino, but he was a bad guy. Trust me, you enjoy the movie more if you know it's Pacino all along.
I don't know why, but it always pops me huge that Jim Sheridan directed Get Rich or Die Trying. Speaking of popping huge, we start the episode with a recap of Josh Rafferty getting the absolute ever-loving shit beat out of him. Joe, this is almost played kind of for laughs with the comments and voiceovers from the peanut gallery here. Specifically, you know, Stefan Bonner with his droll delivery of, they were friends, and I know it really hurt Diego to punch him in the face 100 times. That
was the highlight, but I will say Koscheck's, like, blunt delivery of, he looked hopeless was pretty close, I thought. Especially because no matter what Koscheck's saying, his face while delivering that line is unchanged. Like, he's very, very consistent in that regard. But yeah, hopeless was the description. We got to be honest, fellas, they're not off the money here. I mean, it was it was very, very one-sided, as we covered. So I think it was probably the easiest. I mean, you didn't have to be a fight expert to know that wasn't exactly the most competitive battle last week. So you may as well make some fun of it.
And they do. And unfortunately, because of Rafferty's loss here, it means that Chuck has to send another guy over, which... We've talked about time not being exactly linear on this show, and so I think they actually like inserted a talking head or two to drag out the moment, because you can tell Chuck's just like, fuck Kenny, you got to go. And it's, first of all, we got to talk about the Chuck fit watch here. He's got the long tee, the blue tee, the thong flip-flops, and I had a pair of those jeans that kind of roll over your feet. You know, they're a bit too long. If it's raining out, you're fucked. But Chuck's just there with his sidekick. And Steve, we've gotten used to Chuck's emotionless delivery. And I don't know if he's over it here, but he already had it in his head who was going.
Yeah, well, the way they timed this one, it was usually they tell him, all right, you got an hour to get your shit together. We're going to send somebody packing. This time I was like, well, you knew your guy was going to lose and then we were going to do this again. So I like to think this isn't news to you. Send the guy over right now. And Chuck's like, well, fuck, all right, I guess, Kenny, you're going, bud.
Julio, your BattleBots.
My BattleBots buddy.
Compatriot here. He gets sent over, but he's got a pretty good attitude about it. He's not
too good, Alex. He goes and starts making friends with the enemy, which I was not a fan of. Yeah, this episode is all about trying to humanize Chris Lieben, and I was resistant to the manipulation. And I mean, I don't know. I was like, is this going to build up to this big moment where, right? we like Kenny. I think that overall he hasn't done anything to be annoying, so the audience likes Kenny. And so if we get Kenny to like Leben, then that by transference we're gonna like Leben, right? Like, what better way to prove that Leben has come back a changed man than by have Kenny befriend him and have a few talking heads saying, "Hey, this guy's actually all right." And I was like, is that just a setup? Because 1 or 2 episodes from now, Leben's gonna turn again and he's gonna show his true colors, and it was all a plan. Which would have been pretty genius, but also made me just keep this whole subplot at arm's length and maybe lose a little sympathy for Kenny, because I was like, you're letting yourself be manipulated. This is the guy that was pissing on somebody's bed at the beginning of the season.
Once again, we're focusing on the wrong things, because this is not a reflection of Chris Leben, Kenny Florian, or even the masterful editing of this program. This is a reflection of the team leadership of Randy the Natural Couture, who says, without a hint of irony, I'm happy to have Kenny on board. I would imagine you are, Randy, yeah. I mean, you've won 1 fight. They've given you now like 8 different team members. Incredibly still feels the need to confirm this for us. And then, in my favourite part of this whole episode, Randy explains to Kenny that he isn't looking for inside information. Which is incredible. But yes, this is, the severity of this is unbelievable, isn't it? There's like hardly anyone left, dude. Who cares?
Yeah, Randy like walks up to him with his gum shield still in, and he just like looks at him. It's a moment out of a movie, and he goes,
Yes.
Glad you're here. And then dabs him up. Exactly. Like there's no one left because Koscheck gets the sound drop of, and then there were 4. And it's just like this awkward silence before it transitions whatever the fuck's going on at the house.
So strategy wise, is this right? Is this the right move? Right? So he had to trade. It was either Kenny, Diego, or
Koscheck.
Koscheck. Yeah. I think he might. I mean, Koscheck's just wrestling base. The biggest problem for Kenny is his size, right? That's the concern for him. I think they all think Kenny's a good fighter skill-wise. He's just outsized. So I think it made sense.
Yeah, when he comes out for the fight, he like weighs in at 182. I've told you this already, Julio, but he went as low as 145, but his natural weight was 155. So he jumping ahead a little bit in our next episode. He wasn't even supposed to be on the show, but they were like, if you want to be on here, you got to make 185. And, so yeah, no insider information. We get a time update that there's 2 weeks left. It looks like, Steve, people are kind of just checked out. At this point, these guys were guinea pigs in terms of what this show would become. But the toll mentally is becoming apparent of just how numb these guys are becoming to everything.
They're doing these stupid little things to entertain themselves. Diego is like chugging wheatgrass, and it looks like a middle school church retreat weekend. Now that there's no alcohol in the house, they still don't have any real access to the outside world. They're kind of sick of each other, but there's also not enough personalities to create drama without the alcohol. They're in a situation now where the house is big enough they can get away from each other. So the camera is really struggling to find these little entertaining moments to show the people.
They really lucked into their villain of this episode that we're about to get to, because the hijinks are not as entertaining as, punching out a window and shit. It's time for the UFC 50 watch party. This is the big event where they find, we mentioned, the TV that's in the house, and they're going to watch the pay-per-view that we recapped, I believe, in the very first episode of this, just because the main event with Tito Ortiz supposed to fight Guy Mezger, who pulled out, and he ended up fighting a young and doughy Patrick Cote. God bless the Predator. October 22nd of 2004. So just based on the laws of that, the show wrapped early November 2004. Atlantic City, Trump Plaza. Ew. Attendance of roughly 9,000, a buy rate of 40,000, which those numbers, we talked about the numbers the company was doing at this point in time. It's a far cry from where they are today. So main event, Ortiz beat Cote. Rich Franklin beat Jorge Rivera. That fight, I recall, being a pretty solid banger. Matt Hughes defeated George St. Pierre in the first of their 3 fights by armbar at 4:59 of the first round. George St. Pierre obviously became a phenomenon. I don't know if you've ever seen this fight, but he's yes. Green as grass, and the moment was too big for him at that point in time.
For sure. It's a memorable finish because of 4:59, right? Like it's a one of the more clutch finishes, honestly. Yeah, I remember I actually seen this whole card. I did not watch it alongside Randy Couture and Chuck Liddell, however, which is
definitely enhances
as soon
the
as
experience.
this scene started. Yeah, exactly. As soon as this scene started, I was prepared, and I'd imagine Alex was too. This is like a weird MMA thing. Chuck watches fights in a very unique way. And so as soon as this started, I was waiting for us to get a shot of this thing Chuck does where he sort of, how would you explain it, Alex? He sort of is like he's like defending himself from strikes while watching fights.
His like neck stiffens up, and then his arms are like, they stiffen, but they're curved at the bottom. It looks like he's holding two like apples, and he does this thing with his. I'm acting it out right now in real time.
Yes.
Yeah, Julio. It's this thing that he does, like when Vitor Belfort fought Tito Ortiz, they had like a Chuck cam because he was just like in his seat. I guess the idea is he's so excited, or he wants to be in there, and he's mentally processing what he would do. But him and Matt Hughes were boys, so I assume that clip is from him watching the Hughes fight.
And I was waiting for that shot, and we get like 1 second of it, and I pump my fist for that. But obviously, honestly, this does seem like the guys are having fun, and because the house is, thinned, right? There's so few left.
Mm-hmm.
There's a level of like mutual respect that they're just kind of being treated like normal people for the first time in the entire show. So this was a nice steal. I thought this was fun.
They look like friends watching something that they care about. Like everybody is just having a good time. I wrote like, we are all UFC fans. It's just like the power of the UFC is to just get rid of all the bullshit and just have them enjoy some time together. There's not even, I don't know that I saw where Sam was sitting, but I'm assuming that he's also there and nobody cares to give him grief.
Yeah,
he was stealing in the back of the house while they were watching the show.
Oh, that would have been
back
awesome.
In tank tops, fucking brother.
Do some Triple Paul style lore where you just have to watch in the background and Sam Hoger's rifling through people's shit. Yes, I agree. The genuine fun of this is palpable. Steve, I'm sure you can attest to this. You get your boys together to watch some sports, awesome. You go to the bar or a place in public, not awesome. But at home, you got your cup of dip, your dip spit, and your cowboy boots that Randy Couture is wearing here, and you're having a good time.
Like Randy is sitting with the boys, having the time of his life. Chuck is sitting in the back, looking like a heroin addict who needs his next fix the whole time. But then you get this added component of they call into the UFC show, and they're passing the corded touch-tone phone around like a bunch of excited schoolgirls talking to their crush. It was the most humanizing thing they've done all season.
Dana's just yelling down the phone from the building. Isn't it great? This is incredible.
What about that R-bar? Yep.
Just imagine the Fertittas wheeled out the big red rotary phone. They're like, hey, this goes to the house. Give him a call. And yeah, Koscheck, you're exactly right. Koscheck and Lieber are fighting for the phone like they're little girls calling a radio station to request fucking NSYNC. Yeah, Randy Fit watch here. He's got the oversized button up, the jeans, and the boots. I was a bit in awe. I had to pause it to kind of soak it all in. Rounding out that main card, by the way, Frank Trigg, Pop, beat Hanato Verissimo. And the opener of that show was Evan Tanner defeating Robbie Lawler with a flying triangle choke. That's one of those really snappy submissions that, especially for Tanner. When you think of Evan Tanner, you don't think of a guy flying through the air. So I'm surprised it doesn't get more play. I'm learning this in real time also. Cote was supposed to fight Marvin the Beastman Eastman and then got bumped up, and then Travis Lutter got put in to replace Patrick Cote.
See, the reason I remember watching this particular card is the roster is now starting to take shape in a way that I remember. All of these names. Marvin Eastman had an extended stint as a sort of. He was like a gatekeeper that the announcers were always convinced was going to one day click and turn into a real contender. Yeah, it's fun, the memories of that. This is like Randy's ideal environment, right? Where because he's like the senior authority voice on everything, and everyone's just listening to him, and he's talking shop and explaining, oh yeah, he's fine, Matt Hughes a friend, But as you say, Chuck's just back there, just in agony as he watches men fight, just sweating bullets.
He's got his sidekick. I've noticed that's become way more present. It's like his Paulie cell phone. He's got it on him at all times, usually in his hand, waiting for Willa to send those nudes over. They come in one line at a time. Speaking of Willa, she's back. Unfortunately, no customized UFC gear this time.
I noticed.
A black top of some sort. Steve, as I've become accustomed to doing, I'm going to rely on you here to recap the challenge. This is the one I always think of, and I'll explain why in just a moment. But what they had our boys doing on this installment?
This was called Save Your Coach, which Randy and Chuck were both positioned over a carnival-style dunk tank. For some reason, Chuck was doing the Chuck Liddell stance in the dunk tank.
Yes.
Well, let's see. They were on top of a parking garage on the top level with 30 cases of water strategically located in the stairwells. The light heavyweights had to take turns retrieving the cases of water. Once they got all 30 cases, they could dunk the opposing coach into the water.
Thank you for that recap. The one thing you did leave out, Steve, is that it was UFC branded water. It was. That's, again, to talk about where they were. They couldn't even have fucking Aquafina sponsor them for this shit. They had to just slap a sticker on it. All right. So I always think of this because, and we've talked about the team challenges. They are grueling. They are brutal. There's a reason they didn't do these again because they were very lucky they escaped with these guys not getting more injured. That being said, the other challenges they do, I can just mentally think, oh, yeah, that would suck. Bowling with a fucking medicine ball. Everyone on this call and everyone who's listening to this has carried a fucking case of water before. So you know exactly what that's like. And the idea of going down 5 flights of stairs and carrying it up repeatedly, that's something you can relate to. And you have to sprint to get there. So I blow up just watching this, man. My fat ass. It take me a fucking hour to do all this.
Does that mean that Sam's strategy angers you even more?
I'll get to that in just a moment. I respect how brazen he is with this. But yeah, Team Liddell wins. Hilariously, they go searching for the 30th case and it was there all along. They just had it in the wrong spot. And then Randy gets dunked unexpectedly and it's not even funny. Like he doesn't even take a bump. He just goes, it goes up to like his belly button and he looks like a dad who you gave the wrong tool to, working on the car. And he's just like, what the fuck?
He thinks it's an accident. Right?
Yeah.
This is he's like, oh, I fell in. He's like, no, that's not how this works. What is it? That was. I mean, if the challenge wasn't so ridiculous, they'd have done an entire reshoot. It was that lame. The payoff on this, but this was close. By the way, what was the final score on this? Like 30-29.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It was wild, super close.
Forrest, we're really starting to see his personality shine through. He is fucking amped up here. He does a vertical leap over all the cases of water. I was like very impressed with, and he's screaming and fucking just going nuts. And then we get like a talking head of Sam Hoger. First, we get a shot of him like off to the side, the team not like acknowledging him at all. And then his talking head about, I really think I should have gotten more credit for this.
Yes.
We haven't spent enough time discussing his delivery and how, like, if you didn't know better, you would think it was like a nuanced acting performance. There are layers to the way he speaks. Everything he says sounds phony, and he has this sort of like wry smile as he talks too. It's fascinating.
I think we're about to spend a lot more time talking about Sam than we have in the entire show. And that's partly because the show hasn't really given him anything to do until just now. And he definitely gets the spotlight in the worst possible way in this episode. And I'm curious to see if you guys reacted as negatively to it as I did. Alex seems to have some admiration for Sam's behavior.
Well, hold on now. One thing to call out real quick here, the entire time for this and the next episode, like in all his talking heads and around the house, Sam's wearing a shirt that says Palmer College. And all I could find is that it's a chiropractic school, but he's wearing it in a way that's like very Andrew Bernard, where he wants you to know where he went to college. This was at Cornell. Ever heard of it? But back to your point, Julio, now that Chuck's team has won, they're in control. They get to pick the light heavyweight fight. And we go to the discussion point of who's going to fight. And Sam, without like a hint of trying to be funny, is like, well, it was my idea that won it. And then Chuck just starts laughing in his face and he says, your idea to make him do more work than you. And Sam's just kind of like, he doesn't confirm one way or the other. But I think he says I should pick the fight. And Forrest goes, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah. Right after they win, I noted Forrest, for the demographics they're looking for on this show, Forrest is the guy at this point. He's full of fun, dumb jock energy. And then Sam's in the corner It's like, I really think I should be getting more credit here. And then they go to the fight selection, and Sam just deadpans. Yeah, I want to fight. I want to earn my spot. Forrest's like, no, you don't, you fucking idiot.
This is a brutal scene for Sam because Chuck, we've seen that Chuck really has no interest in arguing with anyone, right? Yeah. Like, he's just chill. And Forrest has been, as you say, he's like a fun personality. He's avoided most of the drama. And even they both, Forrest and Chuck, are like, dude, what is your deal? Like, this is a brutal scene, man.
So you said you don't admire his strategy, you just admire the fact that he kind of owned up to it.
Oh yeah, it's like those things we joke about, like no choice but to respect it.
Yeah.
So I don't admire a lot of the things CM Punk has done in his life, but I respect it.
So is he dumb? Is he just that unaware of how he comes across, or is he aware that he comes across as an asshole and doesn't care?
I think the producers of this just started listening to him talk, and they're like, oh, we got something here. This guy's a dickhead. And just put him on blast more. There's an interesting perspective that's offered by none other than Dana White in one of our upcoming episodes of him thinking that Sam's just like smarter than everybody and is just kind of playing everyone with this. And that, I mean, to be fair, it ain't a Mensa convention there. So being the smartest guy in that room is
well, I mean, reality TV now is like, I don't know, we're talking 20 years ago, so I don't know how reality TV savvy any of these guys were. Like if there was a thought process that went, look, there's like these many people in the house, I may not win the championship, but I can at least get something out of being on this show if I play up a character. And so did Sam at some point realize, well, I can be the rich, preppy asshole, and if nothing else, that gives me notoriety coming out of the show. Because I mean, it's on the show. If that's what he's been doing the entire time, we've never seen it until just now. But at some point, I think it's Cost Check. Somebody mentions that he's just a rich kid that came in to play, and I was like, oh, yeah. I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
I love this idea of Sam studying game tape prior to getting into the house, but he's not watching fights. He's watching like The Bachelorette. Like, how can I get over in a reality television situation?
It would explain his face while talking, though, right? Like, he looks so proud of himself. It's either that or he's just entirely oblivious, as you say. I don't know.
He's got some incredible lines of dialogue, and his delivery is unbelievably smug. We'll get to that here momentarily. Team Liddell picks the fight. It's going to be Forrest Griffin against Alex Schonauer, who's been honestly quiet in the show up until this point.
It's an understatement, my friend.
Yeah, you could have forgot he existed. And Forrest hilariously looks him dead in the eyes and say, I think you're the weakest link of the team. But then, of course, in classic Forrest fashion, he adds, and you're going to have every opportunity to prove me that I'm wrong. So this fight has been signed. We'll come back to Alex Schonauer in a minute because, yes, the focus of the show at this point turns to one Sam Hoger. And if you'll indulge me, myself and Julio first met working for Cinemark.
My God, putting it all out there.
That's right. Our boss's social was. This was located in like the rich outskirts of Austin, Texas, and overwhelmingly, Julio, you would say we served like just rich white people. That was like our demographic.
Yes. Doesn't mean that we're all bad, but
no. I'm just,
But whenever you got a difficult customer, the type of interaction was always like, oh yeah, this person has a lot of money and they are used to being treated a certain way and getting what they want, and how dare a theater employee say no to them or tell them that not yet or whatever.
So part of it being in the rich part of town, back when Austin was kind of a safe space before Joe Rogan and the tech bros took it over, the people who lived out in the Lake Travis area were, we had a fair share of celebrities that would come to the theater. The Undertaker was a regular there. Boys, I'll tell you, kayfabe, the last bit of kayfabe that was alive in my heart, I remember the day it died. It was when I watched The Undertaker put on a pair of 3D glasses and walk into Despicable Me. But he was nice, obviously conflicted feelings to say the least about Mark Calloway these days. But I remember like just talking to him once and saying like, kind of broaching the wrestling talk, and Michelle McCool goes, "Mark, we got to go." And the Undertaker was being really nice, but Sandra Bullock would come through, Steven Tyler, Julio. Were you there the night Rick Perry came in and one of the concessionists refused to serve him?
No, but I love that story now.
I hit Kyle Chandler. I hit Kyle Chandler with a door on accident. I was moving something and swung it open.
I moved Kyle Chandler and his family they were at the wrong theater, and I had to go over there and just move him somewhere else. And he was
handsome
nice.
guy. Yeah. The point of this story is one day I was working a box office shift, and on my phone, it was not that busy, and I can sense in the periphery someone approaching, and I look up, and Sam Hoger is standing at the box office at the Bee Cave Cinemark.
Oh, wow.
And he goes, "Hey, man, whatever that pavilion was, the park that was down where they used to have like shows and stuff." He was just like, "Hey, where's the park here?" And I was like, I'd point it to him. He's like, "All right, man, I appreciate it. You have a good day." He was really nice. And I just remember thinking like, what the fuck? And I texted my friend John. I was like, "Dude, Sam Hoger just came to the theater." And without missing a beat, he responded because he remembered that in the box office is where we kept all our shirts for the employees. And he said, "Don't let him near the shirts." That's a quick anecdote about Sam Hoger. And I have a picture with him from one of the fight expos. He was like, those were so fun because those fighters are they're not carnies like wrestlers are. Those fight expos, those guys would just be walking around. You could talk to them and get a picture, and they don't go $20 afterwards. So, Sam Hoger, an interesting individual, and this becomes his show here when things in the house are missing. It seems inevitable that this would happen, but
does it?
How do they? Well, I mean, in the idea of the show, a bunch of dudes like sharing space, there's eventually going to be a rotten apple in the bunch. How do they discover it? They're trying to swap,
right? Like
gimmicks.
Stephen Bonner, his supplements, right? And then they go round. Hilariously, their response to that is going through everyone's stuff in an extensive investigation. And then they go for Sam, who I think Sam knows this is coming his way because he's like on guard. And he shows them their first bag, and then Diego sees there's another bag. And I think it's Stefan who's like, Diego caught him out. And I was like, good God, man. He's the Poirot among them. Diego Sanchez here. And of course, all of it is like just there. And he says, Sam's immediate response is, "I'm taking those back to my family, guys." It's incredible.
Stefan has a great line where he's like, "And we noticed things were missing," and then it smash cuts to his talking head. He goes, "So we started going through people's stuff."
Yes.
It shows them just like rifling through shit. And Stefan, Steve, is doing like a smell test to see if the hats have been worn. He's just grabbing hats out of Hoger's bag to see, which ones have been utilized and which ones haven't.
Speaking of smell tests, at some point this argument goes to the kitchen, and the camera is positioned in such a way where you see the trash is overflowing and there's a full bag of trash on the floor. These guys have completely just regressed in such a manner without the mother hens of the house being present anymore.
During the scene of confronting Sam, it's literally like something from The Office. Koscheck just wanders into frame and he's like eating. He's just got a paper plate that he's eating off of. He observes what's happening and decides that it's not worth his time and then leaves the room.
This was when I accepted my fate, and I'm alongside Julio on this now officially. I'm not going back. I've changed my mind on Koscheck. 180, dude. When he just begins to yell like, "He's a thief! Sam's a thief!" He's incredible in this, man.
Okay, but let's talk it out. This is where I wanted to get. Is he a thief, or is he just an idiot that grabbed a bunch of stuff thinking it was just free swag, and now he's been put in a position where it very much looks like he's a thief because they never find the supplements?
No, the talking head of Sam, looking like the killer, says, "I am no thief. I am no liar." And my notes, all caps, that man is lying.
Because that's the big thing, is that's where he draws the line. Because for the most part, he just has this absent grin on his face, right? Mm-hmm. And then when the word thief comes about, usually, as usual, Koscheck is the one that really catches fire in this thing. Sam says, "I am no thief." He's adamant about this. The problem Sam has, if you're team Sam here, his excuses go quite poorly for him, as we'll get into. So I don't know. It's difficult to believe him.
My note says if this was prison, Sam would be killed because they're not going to ask questions. They just find the shit, and he, imagine the guard gave it to me, and he has.
Yeah, that is where I think my kind of sixth sense kick in because I work in a prison.
Oh,
and I'm like, I've seen this face. Like this guy cleaned everybody's peanut butter out of their canteen supply. He's the killer. Get him out of here.
So the first person he says gave him permission to take all this stuff is someone named Richie, the office manager. And doesn't this character, Joe, sound like someone Jim Cornette would mention in a shoot interview?
Yes,
and then Richie, the fucking office manager.
Yes. and then we meet Richie and he goes, nope.
Dude, all right, so whoever's on the case, is it Florian that goes into Richie's office to ask him? And they show this guy Richie on a laptop that's about the size of mine. And at first, I thought it was blurring the screen. It was just a screensaver. It was like, is this motherfucker watching porn at work? Like, they just walk in and... Like the manager and the wrestler. He's like, go out, knock, and come back in.
Bravo. Richie has the best line in the entire show. He says, I've never given anybody permission, especially you fighters.
This is the most worked up I've seen Kenny Florian so far on the show. He's always a pretty chill guy, but he really takes this very seriously. He takes it to heart. But even then, like this is so Sam potentially gets caught lying twice, right? Because there's the stuff that they're missing, like the fighters are missing stuff. And he says, what you found in my suitcase is not the stuff that you guys are missing. It's stuff that I just grabbed from the gym, and I was given permission to grab that from Richie. And then later he mentioned somebody else. But that excuse turns out to also not be true because Richie says no, and then the other guy says no. So...
Yeah, I forget the guy, the boxing coach is like, why the fuck you bringing me into this?
Yeah, Peter Welch. Because when they first bring out to Peter Welch, his response is like, it's not my stuff. He's completely oblivious as to what... And then he confronts him, as you said. And this is when Diego begins to quite loudly declare that Sam is a liar, which is tremendous.
Yeah, Diego and the English language is always a bit of a struggle. I think he's a lie. I think he's a cheat. I think he's a con. Diego tells Chuck that he doesn't want to spar or roll with Sam because he thinks he's a thief. And Chuck just goes, okay.
It's the only response better than that is when Sam questions Josh Koscheck's use the word thief, and Josh just goes, just shrugs. That's the one I'm going with, brother. They're the top two responses on the show.
This leads to them back at the house this is like a big fight where this is where Sam gets his Oscar clip. Don't call me a thief. I'm not a thief. And then Kenny, has the receipts. He's like, people are missing beanies and sweaters and rash guards, and they somehow end up in your bag. And then even Forrest gets mad and starts yelling.
Yes.
It's
do you remember what makes Forrest mad? Because this is a great moment. So Forrest is just watching, and then Sam says, "I'm missing stuff too." And Forrest is like, "What could you possibly be missing?"
Yeah, I feel like there is two stories being told in Sam, because Sam is saying they're getting mad even though everybody takes stuff from the gym. But that's not why they're mad. They're mad because they think that he took their stuff. You know what I mean? Like he's saying they're getting on to me because I have all the stuff in my suitcase, which is stuff that I grabbed, whether it was with permission or without permission. And everybody does that. But that's not, they're mad because they think that stuff is their stuff. Now, we never see any follow-up to the smell check. So we don't know for sure that what they found in his suitcase was stuff that they were wearing at some point and that he grabbed. Either way, I think he handles it terribly.
Well, Julio, before he can handle it, the captain has to speak up and set things right. Captain Quarry, he says, I'm going to talk to Sam because I've stood up for him in the past and I don't want to look like a jerk, having this guy's back. And we get the tracking shot of Corey coming in with his crutches and, reprimanding Sam. Is like, he uses the word reparations numerous times. He says, you need to make reparations. And, we get the talking head of Corey explaining, why he's doing this. And, he wants peace at the house. And then we get a talking head of Sam Hoger saying, I was already intending to do the right thing. So that night at the house, he wrangles up everything and instead of laying it out lawn sale style, he just puts it in a garbage bag and he says, whoever thinks they got shit stolen, you can come and take it. There was he keeps using the word confusion. He was like, I misunderstood, how much I could take or what I could take. And he puts the bag down. Someone calls him greedy and he kind of walks out of the room. I think in his mind, he thought that, they would be like, Sam, wait. And, thanks.
Wait, the opening of this is the best thing for me for the show. He comes into the room and says, I have an announcement to make. And somebody deadpans that you're quitting.
It's Bonner. Yeah, Bonner says that. You quit?
I didn't catch that.
That's when Sam, I think, realizes this is not going to be the grand triumphant moment he was expecting it to be. It's incredible.
So they're calling him Senator Sam, that he was doing it in a way that absolved himself of any wrongdoing. Yeah. I noted that he brings out Mickey James's luggage.
Oh, shit. Was that Mark Carano?
I think it was.
He'd fit right in with an office job in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, brother.
Mm-hmm.
So Sam thinks they're gonna pat him on the back, but he leaves the room and they just fucking roaches when the lights go off, man. They just swarm to that bag and just start picking through it and taking shit.
I think this is where Sam uses the phrase "men of honor."
Yes. He says, "These are not men of honor." I'm thinking, no shit, they're cage fighters, dude. And speaking of cage fighters, we still have a fight to talk about, boys, and that is the very quiet and I guess not overly impressive member of the cast, Alex Schonauer, who described his occupation as a bar fighter. And I don't even know what that means. It's like the opening scene of the first X-Men when Wolverine is fighting for cigars and booze. It made me think of Pit Fighter. You ever played that arcade game?
Yeah.
Pit Fighter was the shit, dude.
I was slightly annoyed that we hadn't been, even more so than we haven't gotten a backstory and any sort of build up to Sam. The lack of build up to Alex really annoys me because he actually, once they get into it, he sounds like a really interesting guy.
Yeah,
you would think he was a librarian this whole time, and then 9 episodes in, he's a bar fighter from Argentina. What?
The Couture and his talking head previewing the fight mentions that they nicknamed Schonauer Easy Tappins on the other team. I thought that was pretty fantastic.
And then very confidently says, I don't buy that.
But then Forrest is like, yeah, I'll tap. I got no problem with tapping. If it's break an arm or tap, I'll tappity tap.
He's spectacular here. He's like, I want the 5K so I can fix my arm. Dude, he's sold us in this whole deal. My God.
So again, this show had not been proven. I think we're comfortable in this part in real time of okay, ratings are solid, whatnot. But at the time this was filmed, this wasn't a guaranteed home run. So one of the things I've observed is Mark Ratner is more and more annoyed when he has to come in for these weigh-ins. He's just like, oh, this fucking reality show. And, he starts making jokes to pop himself, but he's progressively looking more and more like an employee that got called in off their vacation to do this bullshit that someone else could have done. So he takes the weight for these boys coming in. They're big boys, Forrest especially, my God. Forrest Griffin, 26 years old, 9-2, standing at 6'3". Alex Schonauer, 28 years old, a record of 10-0. I'd like to go to SureDog to confirm that, but I'm not sure. 6'3" also. So the fight is ready to go. It's one of those, if you check the timestamp on the show, you're like, well, something's going to happen here. Joe, this is all too often, and especially now, because of, in part, The Ultimate Fighter and its history. A lot of these fighters think they have to have a game face or do some shit to psych themselves up to the point of it being theatrical. I'm confident in saying that you and I, and Steve's watched enough of this shit too, to say you can tell when it's genuine and when it's not. Alex Schonauer got into a zone here and was ready to kill someone.
Yes, and that quickly translates to some heavy leather. And it's, in terms of fighter mindset, this is a pretty unique spectacle, right? This is frenetic fighting. Yep. This genuinely comes off like two dudes fighting for their life, and it isn't a long time, but it's a good time, bro.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Steve, we talk about the artistry of this, and we talked about the skill. The Bobby and Stefan fight was really entertaining because there was some actual skill at display. This is a bar fight. These guys are just fucking, it's last call and they're going at it.
I buy Alex's story about being a bar fighter in Argentina because he came out ready to kill. I think he knew that he was seen as the underdog, and he was not going to go out like a bitch. Like, if I'm losing, I am falling on my sword.
He throws one of the more mean-spirited leg kicks I've ever seen. There was no artistry behind that. He just was trying to kick him in the leg as hard as he could. Not even to set up distance or anything. He's like, "Fuck you." Julio, I'll get to you in just a minute because this is like a new spectacle for you. But Joe, in all honesty, we talk about the history and the legacy of the game. This is cage fighting, brother. This is what it's all about right here.
It is there. I mean, the brawling here, like every exchange feels like the fight could end at any moment.
Yeah.
Forrest hurts he re-injures his arm throwing a punch at one point. The biggest issue Alex has is he stops a couple takedowns, and I think it gives him confidence that he can hang in the clinch, which ultimately becomes a problem. But dude, he certainly ain't going to wake up the next morning wondering what have you tried, right? I mean, he's swinging for the fences, and he definitely cracks Griffin a few times there, definitely.
Julio, we've talked about Forrest and his personality and him becoming one of the standouts as the fun guy. Brother can crack. Were you kind of surprised at how vicious he was as a fighter?
Forrest? No. I assumed that based on the stories that they've been telling and just his confidence, I figured that he could put up a fight. No, for me, what was captivating was Alex's entire demeanor. From the moment he comes out for the fight and there's the talking heads of his own teammates being shocked. Who is this guy? That was my favorite part, that he surprised everybody with his performance. And I mean, call it good staging of the shots or good editing or whatever, but it really gives you that feeling of he's a different person from everything that we've been seeing before. The talking heads leading to the fight were making me wonder if he was going to win, just because everybody's saying, yeah, he's the underdog, but I don't know, maybe. And Forrest was coming across as extremely confident, a little overconfident. So I thought that maybe there's going to be an upset. And I like Forrest. I found him very entertaining. So I was feeling a little bad for him, but at the same time, based on how Alex came out and how much energy he had, I was like, I kind of want him to win now. It was a good fight. It was one of those fights where you want either fighter, as long as they perform well, you want them to win. So I was conflicted and I was impressed. And again, my main point of contention with the whole thing was, I wish we had seen more of this guy. Even if it was just him being quiet, because it wouldn't have been a surprise of just one episode. It would have been a surprise the whole season in the making. Oh, this quiet kid has been this powerhouse hiding by under everybody's noses. So it's amazing. I was really, this might be my favorite fight so far, just because of how it challenged my expectations.
That's fair. After some wild exchanges, eventually Forrest is able to take down Schonauer. He mounts him and just rains down fucking bombs, and it's in a position in the cage where Schonauer wasn't going anywhere, so he taps to strikes. Forrest gets up and tells the crowd there, the other fighters, let's give it up for Alex and that ass whipping he just gave me.
Yes.
And Dana White, in a rare moment of me agreeing with him on something, he explains that Schonauer probably knew, he saw the hand he was dealt and decided just to come out swinging, and everybody respects that, and that's true. You see a lot of guys in the history of MMA and boxing that know they're overmatched and just kind of coast to the decision. There's other examples. Joe, I was trying to think of a good example. I remember when Brandon Vera fought Shogun, he had no business doing that, and he fought his fucking heart out. He ended up losing.
That was awesome. Yeah. Wasn't that a Fox special? I want to say that was a great fight. Absolutely. The one thing about this that surprised me, because I remember at the time tapping to strikes being kind of sacrilege. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering if that was going to be one of the big, Dana has these moments where he explains the sport, don't let the judges scorecards. I was wondering if we don't actually get any of that, because he fights with such vigor in the first 2 minutes. It's let him do his thing, man. Let him go home.
The narrative coming out of this, though, or the big, the bullet point, top story, is that Forrest Griffin got a pretty gnarly cut right on his eyebrow. And this is troublesome or potentially troublesome as if it's too bad they won't let him fight. That's how do you like that trope, Julio? That's a pretty good like cliffhanger, right?
Yes, it is. My final note is Forrest is a gracious winner because he is. I love that he, he has that moment where he asks everybody to praise Alex, that he goes and hugs Alex, and everybody seems to have a very friendly interaction after the match, which is stark contrast with all the other fights and how they've ended.
Forrest didn't tell him to take his bus ticket home.
Exactly. Yeah, I like that. If Alex didn't win, at least he got like that respect and that admiration from everybody that had been underestimating him. But then of course we get to the part where the doctor's looking at Forrest and all that stuff, and it's like no good deed goes unpunished. He was a gracious winner, and now he may not fight again. That's a massive cliffhanger, and that's the last thing we see, right? Like they.
Margaret Goodman just like spreading open his cut and being like, yep, that's a cut, all right. Steve, where do you rate this on the not the Muda scale, because the bloodletting wasn't that, but it's a pretty good gig Mark Forrest has here.
Yeah, and it's in a place that is susceptible to more cuts. I mean, infamously, pro wrestlers will strike the eyebrow with a knuckle to open it up in a situation where you're not allowed to blade. Mm-hmm. So I can see someone who's really trying to do damage, seeing that fresh wound and just going for it. With the added concern, we'll learn a little bit more in the next episode, of blood dripping into the eye is a big concern when they're deciding whether to stop these fights. And it's a quick way to debilitate someone who otherwise would be winning the fight. So yeah, it's definitely something to keep an eye on moving forward.
All right, boys, believe it or not, we're at episode 10 moving forward here, and it's time to get into the semifinals. Thank you for listening to this episode of TUFtwenty. A reminder to subscribe to the podcast, visit wearethecontrarians.com, and follow the Contrarians across social media at Contrarian Prime.
You can also follow Alex individually at Contrarian Alex, and you can check out our other special projects on our Patreon channel at patreon.com/Contrarian Prime. If you want to listen to Alex teach me about The Rock and John Cena, that's where you need to go.
You can catch me weekly on the Late Night Grin, live and free on YouTube every Friday night. In addition, Alex and I collaborate monthly on Grin Grappler, discussing some of pro wrestling's biggest and baddest. If those grins are for you, check out LNG Gold, a YouTube membership plan that includes over 50 hours of exclusive content each month.
You could follow me on Twitter and on Blue Sky at NotDrDeath. That's NotDreath. Or you can block me now and save us both a lot of embarrassment.
Until next time, be sure to make your coaches proud and don't call anyone a fatherless bastard.